Okay, looks like we are live for the first time in a little while. The VidCon weekend has seen me missing live chats. Last Thursday was hanging out with other YouTubers at like a pre-VidCon party. And since then, I've either been at VidCon events, or recovering from VidCon. Hey, Smiley Nerd, how's it going? A little bit of a cold as well, which may make me husky voiced, as I said, the title of the chat. And hello, AgroPixie. Also may affect how long I can keep going. And hi, Luke and Catherine and Charlie and Toby, everyone coming in the room. Nice to see, nice to see. Yeah, so it's possible my energy levels may be a bit lower than usual, and it's possible that I may not have the stamina to go for 2 hours. The combination of being old and recovering from a big weekend, although I don't think that's really affecting me anymore, just I've got a bit of a cold on top of that. So I shall soldier on as much as possible. But lordy, we certainly have a lot of things to talk about. The world has been a busy place. Gaming Freak, you're right. You haven't been on for ages. Haven't seen you on here for ages. Nice to see you tonight. Side effect of the weekend is it's remarkable to me, at least, how much I don't want to drink alcohol, because I'm not normally shy about when we do these live streams having a bevy or two. But yes, I haven't had an alcoholic beverage since the weekend, and I'm not doing it tonight either. And hello, David. Good to see you. Yes, so plain old carbonated beverage for me this evening to try and keep my throat lubricated and keep me talking to you fine people, and hoping I don't crash. But I did have a really good weekend at VidCon. It was, the crowds were surprisingly much smaller than I was expecting. That's fascinating. Sorry, I just got distracted by a thing here. Yes, the crowds were much smaller than I was expecting, and their exhibition hall showing was smaller than expected. But I had a good time. Met a whole bunch of my old YouTube friends who I don't get to see very often. Made some new YouTube friends. Felt kind of invigorated and enthusiastic. And I've said this a lot, but it sort of gave me the motivation to try and do more and maybe slightly different things with my YouTube channel. So you may see slightly different styles, not so much content-wise. My content, by and large, will probably remain similar, but there may be differences in like editing and presentation and formats. You never know. So we'll see what I can get down to. And hey there, Tara. Young was angry, strategically making sure her hair was blocking her face as she walked around the back. Charlie, did have a good Father's Day. I had a fine and relaxing Father's Day. Thank you very much. No, what am I talking about? I was at VidCon on Father's Day. I had a frenetic and busy Father's Day. I didn't do anything particular Father's Day-ish though. Gaming Freak, who's getting hit by bikes? I've not really heard lots about people getting hit by bikes. Did you get hit by bikes? I think it was more people on bikes getting hit by things is a bigger risk, but I've not particularly heard of a spike in stories of people getting hit by bikes. Yeah, still talking about VidCon and making videos. one of the things I may well be doing more of, possibly a lot more of, is collaborating with people. So you may well see some different people on my channel, collaborating with new people. Tara, messages about religious cults. I don't know. When did you send that to me? I get lots and lots of messages, and sometimes specifics are hard for me to hang on to. Also, as an excuse, old early onset Alzheimer's. Right. Toby, Celtic Kings got arrested, got drunk and thought it'd be good to punch his mum's abusive ex-boyfriend. Well, we all know getting drunk is not good for him. And while I can admire the spirit of punching an abusive ex-boyfriend, and I certainly have no sympathy for the abusive ex-boyfriend, it is a crime. That's what we have to remember, really. As a gaming freak, you're hearing lots of stories about being hit by bikes. When you say bikes in America, do you mean motorcycles or push bikes? Aggro Pixie, I have played a little bit of Dad of Boy. I haven't had the energy to play. I've been since probably I played it last week a little bit, and then since the whole VidCon thing started, I haven't played any games. Oh no, I tell a lie. I played about half an hour of Borderlands 2 last night on my PC because I wanted to shoot some things. But yeah, I played a bit of Dad of Boy, aka God of War, and the combat's a bit more intense than I was looking for. It's like every 5 seconds you have these really intense life or death battles, and I wanted a bit more flow than that. This keeps up, I might restart the game in story mode and see how I feel about that. Tara, you sent me a message about church elders having private meetings with 8-year-olds, asking them sexual questions. I don't think I did see those messages because that's really disturbing. And it feels like something I would remember. Good evening, Miss Foxification. Gaming Freak, you are talking about getting hit by push bikes. Yes, being a pedestrian, being hit by a push bike can be very painful, can get quite serious injuries. And in fact, if you're unlucky or old or young, you can be killed by a push bike collision. So yeah, not to be underestimated, the pain factor in getting hit by a push bike. Not as bad as a car, but it's still a bit of moving metal hitting you. Oh, geez, they'll be saying Celtic King's court hearings next Thursday, and he's high risk of going to prison because of his previous assault charge. That would suck, man. It's kind of like he's got a battle ahead of him with the alcohol abuse, I think. And on the plus side, at least he knows that. But yeah, that can be very tough. That's okay. Pass on all our best, Toby. We hope things. Honestly, I hope he doesn't go to jail for it. And also hope things generally are different. Smiley Nerd. Oh yes, Christopher Judge, aka Tielk from Stargate, is the voice of the dad in God of War. Yes. Yeah, I mean it's funny. Everyone sort of laughs and jokes about how often Kratos just calls his son boy. Yeah, really girlfriend boy. It is pretty funny. Yo, Frank, on the up over. How's it going, man? Oh, Charlie, cyclists scare you by not ringing bells. AIDSy fucking hates cyclists with a passion because he has a disability, does not move around very fast, walks with a walking stick, and he has been the subject of some very callous treatment by cyclists over the year, and as a result, really fucking hates cyclists. I guess sort of being hit or monstered by them will do that to you. So gaming freak, you have an obsession of watching people getting hit by cars. Those Russian dash cam ones, I mean, they're not universally Russian, but they're mostly Russian. The dash cam videos of people doing super stupid things and getting hit or almost getting hit, combined with the people trying to do an insurance fraud, so trying to get hit very gently by a car and then pretend they're injured and go for a lawsuit. And you get the video of the car stopping before it hits the person, and then the person throwing themselves on the bonnet of the car. Super weird and quite amusing. Are those the ones you're talking about, Game Freak? Because I will also watch them. That's right, David. There's an Aussie dash cams channel that has some interesting stuff on. And as you say, I think it's actually called Aussie dash cams. I have seen some of their stuff. I just think the wildest stuff seems to happen in Russia. Life's just a little bit different in Russia. But yeah, it's probably a little more satisfying to see near misses than see someone actually get hit. But some of the near miss videos are amazing. But yeah. Harmless intoxication, trying to avoid buying a new car after your old one was written off. You want to get a dash cam. Yeah, I've never had a situation for what I would have needed a dash cam, but I see why people like them. We've seen very amazing footage from dash cams. Toby, you may be right that Celtic King will be stopped from drinking alcohol in prison, but prison is still pretty goddamn fucked. So Charlie, you're walking your dog, and boys came hitting downhill on scooters or skateboards, crashed right into your dog, and no, that's not good. Remember, Razor scooters were first popular like a long time ago, like I don't know, like 16 or 17 years ago. This first time Razor scooters were popular, and it was the trendy thing. You'd see city dudes, business suits, guy in a suit, but he's on a scooter because he hasn't given up, man. He's still edgy. I ended up hating them with a passion because they were popular when my kids were little. When I would generally walk with both my kids could walk, and I'd walk along holding their hands. And one time I was by myself in the city. This fuckhead came on the footpath, came speeding around the corner. He was coming downhill. I was on the level bit. He did a 90-degree corner with a bank building, so there was no visibility at all around the corner. And he came around the corner at high speed, and by pure blind luck, didn't hit me. But I swear, I'm not exaggerating. He missed my hand by about this much. But if I had been walking with my kids, he would have plowed straight into whoever was on that side of me. And he had enough mass and speed to very seriously injure one of my kids. And no word of a lie or exaggeration, if he'd done that, I would have beaten him to fucking death with his own Razor scooter. And it was from that point on, I hated Razor scooters with a passion because it encouraged people to be fucking morons. And I wouldn't have wanted to have killed this guy, but I would have straight up killed him. So I hate them very, very much. Oh, okay, Tara, you've sent me the message. They were Mormons. Okay, that's fun. Mormons. So, Frank, Russian spies have been arrested for crime they committed years ago. And the paranoid section, far left, claims it's staged to distract from last week's Brexit. Wow. Okay. I had not heard the story of the spies being arrested, but there are no shortage of paranoid people. There are no shortage of people who see conspiracies, and it is certainly not limited to an ideology, whether that be left, right, centre, libertarian, what have you. People's political persuasions doesn't seem to stop them from getting into conspiracy theories. Sometimes affects the things they have conspiracies about, but also conspiracies cross party lines. I think a lot of conspiracies aren't dependent on people's politics. I don't think moon landing conspiracies split along party lines. I think that is everyone. Even 9/11 truthers. I'm not sure if they're more dominated by left or right politics, but I think I could see people on the left or right seeing different sorts of 9/11 conspiracies. But I don't know. Ms. Fox, the Brits are pinning the Skripal attacks on GRU spies, but you think the GRU doesn't make mistakes. If they want you dead, you're dead. But what about, what's his name? The Ukraine politician who, from the poisoning, had that huge disfiguration on his face. Oh, it comes from a channel of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses who want to expose the Christian cults. Well, thank you. For some reason, I just knew you'd know Ms. Foxification. Litvinenko. I forget how you pronounce his name. But yeah, he was apparently poisoned with a cup of tea. Thanks for dropping by, Gaming Freak. Always nice to have people drop in and out. That's right, polonium. Did he die? Okay, but he didn't die straight away, did he? Yes. Okay. That is probably the first time I've had someone do a straight up spam message on the channel. Spamming, trying to sell things. That's fucking weird. Oh, misfoxification. Okay. You're saying polonium is slow and painful. Wow. Okay. Now getting more information than I ever really wanted. But actually, that makes it sound like I didn't want you to tell me. It's interesting information. What I mean by it's like when you start getting awful details about something being awful, it's like, okay. And there's people doing that shit. God, that actually, the poisoning and whatnot just made me remember that it was relatively recently, earlier this year, the members of that Japanese death cult, Litvinenko, were they executed? Or what? They did the sarin gas attack in the yeah, they were executed. Yeah, I was just looking it up in July. Yes, and yeah, more than 20 years after the attack, the cult leaders were finally executed. So I just looked up when that happened. I was sure, but yeah, the ones who had been in jail for 20 years and long drawn out execution trial. What? Oh my God. Yeah. Catherine, you read 9/11 essay on 9/12 because you got given a current events essay assignment 2 days before 9/11. Wow, Jesus, that's very topical. Yeah. Oh, Toby, you know, someone who believes 9/11 conspiracy theories, someone was assassinated. Oh, yeah. No, there's the thing. 9/11 truthers tend to be extremely unbalanced. They're almost textbook example of really quite extreme conspiracy theorists, in as much as you can shoot down all their conspiracies because they're basically all quite stupid and unsupportable. And you can shoot them down with quite conclusive evidence. And rather than listening to the evidence and being swayed by evidence, they dig their heels in harder and say, you're part of the conspiracy. Yeah, Frank, the thing I was talking about was, the Tokyo Underground trains. This weird death cult released sarin gas and killed a bunch of people and certainly caused a lot of panic on top of killing them. Oh, yeah, that's a good catchphrase they have, Frank. Even the experts say. No, it's again, the other thing conspiracy theorists will do is cherry pick. They will take one thing and like out of, there might be a report that's hundreds of pages long, and they'll pull out one line in the whole thing that they say proves their point and focus on that, and ignore the other 100 pages that contradict what they say. It's really quite strange. Even just like global warming deniers, climate change deniers, they fixate on bizarre things. Like, I don't know if you remember the hacked emails that totally exposed them, except they didn't. But you still get people who obsess over, this email trail shows they're faking the climate research. It's like, yes, hundreds of scientists around the world are banding together to fake data. That's what's happening. Ms. Fox, you think it's hard for Americans to perceive they're so hated? That may be part of it, but no, it's the system failing. You're right, and the feeling vulnerable. It's an interesting insight into people's psyche. That I think there are a lot of people who think, like me, an American, America is impregnable. We are not susceptible to these random camel jockeys, desert dwellers, fanatics from around the world. They can't reach around the world and inflict this scale of terror on my life, because that shakes their world too much. And when you really look at it, it's quite perverse. These people would rather believe that their government would conspire to murder thousands of their own citizens than they would believe that terrorists are capable of doing this. It's really quite odd. Oh, Frankie, yeah, that thing Mike Pence says smokes it. Not bad feel. He was paid by the tobacco lobby. He has literally been saying that for years. That's not a new thing. Uh, uh, I hadn't noticed him saying it recently, but yeah, that's the thing he says, and he said it for years because he's paid by the tobacco lobby to say that the health things about smoking are exaggerated. Oh yes, Tara, that's one of the fun things to talk about. Our new Australian Prime Minister has been saying obnoxious, vile shit, vilifying our trans community, just saying this ridiculous shit, absolutely meaningless stuff, just designed to whip up anti-trans sentiment. And what he says makes no sense. I mean, if you want to know how little sense he makes, his strategy for dealing with the drought in Australia is straight up to pray. Is what he said. I'm going to pray for the farmers. I think everyone should pray for the farmers. Believe in the power of prayer. Make it rain. It's going like, dude, you're fucking insane. Okay. This Foxification, you reckon there's a plan to dump Scummo? They surely couldn't. They surely couldn't. I mean, it was bizarrely and borderline unbelievably self-destructive for them to go through this leadership spill they had last week. I find it almost impossible to believe they could do it again. They should have gone for Bishop over Scummo anyway. She was far better placed, far more qualified, far more competent than Scummo. Yeah, the concept of them doing a leadership spill again before the election, which is like, in the next 6 months, most likely. I find it very hard to believe they'll do that. But never say never. I've learned from the rather unbelievable series of developments in politics around the world. Saying something will never happen because logic and common sense has told us that won't happen. That's a mug's game. Thinking you can predict what will happen based on what's sensible or intelligent. The world is not working that way. Tara, you reckon Bishop's getting out? She hasn't made an announcement to that effect, has she? She still has time to, but I wasn't aware of her making an announcement that she was going to leave at the end of this term. If I was in the coalition in a marginal seat, and in fact, by marginal, I mean with a less than 10% margin, because the swing against them is probably going to be at least that much. But yeah, if I was in one of the really marginal seats and I was in the coalition and was pissed off at them at all, I'd make the announcements now and get back at anyone who had pissed me off. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just doing a quick look up, Tara, and it is possible that she'll leave at the next election. Like, she did leave the cabinet. Well, she's 62. I didn't realize she was that old. No, I will go out on a limb and say she definitely hasn't made a public statement about leaving at the next election. I just did a Google search, and I'm reasonably convinced it would have shown up at the top of the Google searches if she'd made a formal announcement. So there are people saying they wouldn't be surprised if she does. But I am reasonably confident she hasn't made a formal announcement. Yeah, Miss Foxification. Yeah, would Julie Bishop be damaging the party by sitting on the backbench? Look, I don't know. It's like my favourite thing is the number of people trying to pressure Tony Abbott into stepping down, because basically a significant majority of the Liberal Party fucking hate Tony Abbott now. They think he's basically the what do you call it? God, my brain go blank. But basically, yeah, his party thinks he's responsible for all their woes, and a significant number of them say, "Yeah, Tara, do you have a link? Because I was very surprised nothing showed up when I did uh, a Google search. And are you sure that that's about leaving Parliament and not about leaving the front bench?" misfoxification. Literally, I think about the most polite thing you can say about Tony Abbott is he's a thorn in the side of the Liberal Party. Like, he is a terrible, vindictive, destructive force, and has severely damaged the party in the eye of the public. Like, most people see him as responsible for the shit that went down. All right, you sent me the link on Twitter. I'm going to very quickly look at that then. Twitter. What's on the Twitters? I mean, speaking of Twitter, has anyone looked at that alternative social media platform, Mastodon? Because I had a look at it and it's like, Tara, the headline of that article you sent me is Julie Bishop indicates she will run again in the next federal election. So you've read it completely back to front. Hey, Music Lady, you're on a train. Catherine, that's a slightly more accurate description of Tony Abbott, a bad smell. Yeah, Tara, look, I get where you're coming from, but like I was saying before, I think it would have been all over the news and mentioned over and over and over and over again if Julie Bishop was leaving Parliament, because that would be big fucking news right there. That would be huge news. But yeah, I mean, considering the Libs are likely to lose like 20 seats, and that's a conservative estimate. I've seen some very gung-ho estimates that said they could lose 40 seats. They might lose some sleeps. They might have trouble sleeping in the lead up to the election. But I reckon if you're a gambling person, you could gamble on them losing 20 seats in the next election, and maybe more. Like I said, I mean, they only have a one-seat majority. To lose a majority in the House, they only have to lose one seat. Now, that doesn't give Labor a majority because there's a number of crossbench independents. But yeah, I think Labor have to pick up about 5 seats to form a majority. I think it's something like that. And I don't think there are many people who doubt that the government, the opposition, will win that many in the next election and become the next government. Toby, angry for PM. Dude, politics is so evil and fucked. I have trouble seeing myself in that world, because I would just be so exasperated. Be awful. Oh God, ooh, being a bit cynical there, Miss Foxification. Bishop could join the Greens. Hey, stranger things have happened. I mean, the now defunct Australian Democrats were actually started by a prominent Liberal Party MP who had had enough of the major parties and thought the way they carried on was bullshit, and he wanted to have a party that he believed was more principled. and his tagline was "Keep the bastards honest." Because all he ever saw the Democrats as doing was getting a few seats in the Senate and maybe holding a balance of power, which they did a couple times, and they lasted for a while until internal infighting tore them apart. Which, you know, it's funny is when you get wildcard mavericks, that seems to be a problem. So, misfoxification, there's the Assistance and Access Bill 2018, which orders online service to create a backdoor. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Fuck, I haven't even had a chance to go on about that. Yes, all our major political parties in this country are gung-ho for police state surveillance on citizens. There is no chance of stopping it because both the Libs, who are supposedly the party of small government and freedom of the individual, they're mad for it. They're mad for police state powers. They're the party who've repeatedly wanted to introduce thought crime laws, basically sedition laws. Government could say that they didn't like things you said or thought, and they could criminalize things you said. And that's not like inciting people to violence, but literally the wording of their laws was so ambiguous. It was basically, if the government didn't like things you said, they could make that a criminal offense. And it's like, yeah, that's the party of the freedom of the individual for sure. And you certainly get no relief from the Labor Party for this police state government surveillance bullshit. Almost misfoxification like that, you're going to arrange a meeting with your senator to explain the finer points and why that's fucking failure, yeah, and explain like PGB, pretty good privacy encryption can be used to secure My Health Record. Yeah, how did they manage to fuck up the My Health Record thing so bad? And it's not just that the database was probably going to be insecure, but it was made very plain the government intended to sell our health records to private enterprise and also to let law enforcement get in on all of the records. It's basically, even if the database was secure, even if the infrastructure for My Health Record was secure, it was very, very clear the government just intended to let anyone and everyone get access to your personal health records. It's fucking terrible. But that's what I heard. Oh, Smiley Nerd wants to smash the state. Good luck with that. Many people have tried over the centuries. It turns out to be quite the problem. Oh, yeah, and that was the other weird thing with foxification. Once you opt into the My Health Records, you can never opt out. That was fucking bizarre. It's like they did everything wrong with the My Health Records. But yeah, and it's just like, but even just the people running things, you know, they're just asking, you know, a little mention of smash the state. The ruling parties seem to be just asking for us to do that from time to time. There's a thing publicised today, an interview with the head of the Real Estate Institute of Australia, where people are saying, like, because of various stupid pieces of fucking legislation, accommodation is unaffordable for an increasing number of people. And he's like, well, if you can't afford rent, get a second job or move to another fucking city. And it's just like, or we could drag these fucks who are exploiting us out into the streets and string them up from the light poles. You know, that's another potential solution for these tiny percentage of the country who are fucking over the vast majority of the population. I mean, I think they need to reread their history books. I love it. There was an American billionaire, I can't remember his name, but he basically he gave a speech at some big confab where all these rich people were at, and it was, if we, the rich, do not stop fucking over everyone else to the extent we've been doing for a couple decades, and if we don't do something to correct the ever-increasing wealth disparity issue, there will be a revolution. They will drag us out of our mansions and string us up in the public square. You know, history tells us at a certain point that's what happens. And his whole point was basically there would be fair justification for doing that. When you look at the extent, I mean, we'll go to the most extreme example is based on the value of Amazon shares. Jeff Bezos is regarded as the wealthiest person in the world, worth more money than anyone else in the world, although most of that's imaginary money. But he's regarded as being the wealthiest person in the world, and yet he runs warehouses with people being paid poverty level wages, treated like virtual fucking slaves. I mean, that's how you get to be the richest person in the world, by being an absolute piece of garbage. Yes, Charlie, the guillotine needs to make a comeback. Was that Tara? The report in Newcastle takes 10 years to save a deposit, putting away 15% of your income. I mean, certainly as recently as the 70s, a person on a very average income would have very little trouble saving for a deposit for a house and then paying for the mortgage. And it's really spiked since the 90s. But, you know, it's absurd. Like, people just, like, older generations who have the fucking nerve to say to younger generations, oh, you just want everything easy. It's like, no, like I said, in as recently as the 1970s, let alone it was increasingly easy before that, but a very average income was more than enough to save a deposit for a house and pay a mortgage on a house. And that's just a fucking joke now. I mean, when more often than not, places selling for $1 million. I mean, look, again, I'll do a quick Google search on median house price in Australia. Let's see if I can get it by capital city. What's this? Okay, yeah. So median, which means it's not the average; it's the most common area of price in Sydney, is 880,000. In Melbourne, 723,000. Then a really sharp drop. Brisbane goes down to 491,000. I'm just going to double check what that's for. Yeah. So, okay, no. It's looking at housing authority. So saying if you had $800,000 to buy a house, like in Queensland, that would get you somewhere very nice, very luxurious. Regional New South Wales, that'll get you somewhere nice. Sydney that'll get you a 2-bedroom apartment. So that's it. What'll get you a huge luxurious house in Brisbane will get you a 2-bedroom apartment in Sydney. Big family home in Canberra. Family home in regional Victoria. But again, in Melbourne, it'll get you like 2 to 3 bedroom apartment. So for $800,000, in Sydney and Melbourne, it will get you a 2-bedroom apartment. Other places will get you a nice house, but Sydney or Melbourne is harsh. Oh, and hello, Megaleech and Fila and Sila. So yeah, I mean, and like I said, $800,000. So what do you need? Is it 20% for a deposit? Um, uh, which would be, and that's for a fucking apartment. A house is going to go for $1 million more often than not. That's a small house in an unfashionable suburb. Is going to go for $1 million more often than not. I mean, so if you have to save uh, 150, 200,000, it's well, how much can you put away per year? Can you put away 10%, 20% of your income for a year? I mean, how long does that, and because the prices keep going up, so it keeps getting further away from you. It's absolutely ridiculous. Um, Peter, you live in Eastern Sydney. You feel a bit sheltered from the homophobes there. Yeah, I can understand that completely. And of course, that was, the eastern suburbs of Sydney is where a lot of Australia's gay culture built up when you go from, everywhere from sort of Paddington, Darlinghurst through to the further eastern suburbs has always been a big part of Sydney's gay community. Miss Fox, when you moved north, that's okay. Yeah, I've moved slightly further out about 18 months ago. But again, even in Melbourne, the difference is really dramatic. As a renter, when I was renting a house in the inner west in Melbourne, and what I was paying for a 2.5 bedroom house with an in-ground swimming pool. When I moved to East St Kilda, same rent got me a 2 bedroom apartment. So even in Melbourne, there's a lot of division. Oh, Miss Foxification, you really moved north. You moved to Darwin. Okay. Video games for fun. You're hypothesizing about an Australian version of The Wire. Well, first, I don't think Australian crime is as interesting as US crime, where The Wire being built around Baltimore, for those who don't know. But if you want good Australian crime stuff, man, look at some stuff that the Edgerton brothers have done over the years. Most notably, the movie they did a couple of years ago called Animal Kingdom. And I think there's a TV series, like a Netflix series that's got 2 seasons that's like inspired by or a spin-off of Animal Kingdom. It's called Animal Kingdom. I haven't watched it. Probably should watch it at some point to see what it's like. But yeah, another film the Edgerton brothers did was called The Square. That was good. They're actually very good at doing Australian crime stories. And there were the ABC did some series back in the 90s. There was a couple series. I think one was called Janus. Let me have a quick search again. Australian crime series. Yes. Am I right or am I wrong? Was it called that? It was. That's right, Phoenix. So they had one series called Phoenix, and then a kind of spin-off sequel called Janus. I think Phoenix was better than Janus, but those were not on a par with The Wire, but they are pretty good. Peter, what rent do I pay? Too much rent, my friend. Too much. No, but I do rent. YZS Productions. Is it a crime to synthesize a nature strip? I don't know. Is it a crime to do sentences that no one knows what you're actually asking? Yeah, video games. Look, well, they're a bit vintage. They're 90s series. But yeah, if you're literally hypothesizing about an Australian version of The Wire, look up 90s series. They were on ABC, Phoenix, and Janus. Don't waste time with that underbelly shit that the commercial networks did. That's a waste of your time. But yeah, also the films of the Edgerton brothers, notably Animal Kingdom and The Square. Synthesized nature strip. You mean okay? You mean synthetic marijuana? Well, let's talk generally. If what you are now saying is synthetic marijuana, as in synthetic drugs, uh, basically you can synthesize a chemical variant of an illicit narcotic that has not yet been prescribed by law, and technically you are not breaking the law. Although what the law usually does is find out the chemical makeup of what you're selling and then declare that legal. It's kind of like this endless cycle. So I think a lot of the sex shops were selling legal highs that was stuff that apparently varied between something that did absolutely nothing through to some stuff that was apparently quite dangerous because you never actually knew what it was that you're getting from them. But it's like in New Zealand, they sell what they call party pills, and it's completely legal. It would definitely be uh, illegal in Australia, but it was legal in New Zealand. And they're apparently like mild amphetamines. Yeah, Charlie Poppers. Uh, uh, but yes, the Australian drug laws are much more strict. Oh, yeah, sorry. Yes, I know we've been Peter about might as well be smoking parsley. But yes, no, I'm aware of some stuff that was sold in various outlets as legal highs that actually was pretty goddamn serious drug. Uh, and I know there were some cases in the UK of some stuff being sold uh, that was incredibly potent. It's like, whoa, full on. Oh, that's right, Mr. Intoxication. Of course, Schedule 9 in Australia. Yes, but again, technically, uh, if somebody invents a variant, and it's not just synthetic cannabinoids, it's synthetic versions of other drugs as well. Technically, if someone comes up with a chemical variant that isn't specifically prescribed by law and doesn't contain particular things that are prescribed by law, then technically it's not illegal, although the loopholes never stay open for long in Australia. But yeah, Australia, they're always trying to make all the things illegal. So, yes, I mean, I would be nice if we moved the way an increasing number of countries around the world are, and that they go like, if we were grown up and adult about it, uh, cannabis is much less dangerous than alcohol, and alcohol's legal. So we should find a way to regulate the legal sale of cannabis products to adults because it's far less dangerous than alcohol is. Miss Foxification, they close the loophole. Ah, it has a clause about derivatives and analogs. Right. Oh yeah, no, you're absolutely right that they've tried to cover as much as they can, but if you got a good lawyer, there's probably wiggle room, but you're obviously opening yourself because the Australian laws are designed to make everything illegal, basically. Do I think cannabis is similar to horseradish? No, I don't. But then again, I have no experience with horseradish whatsoever, so I don't have anything solid to base that on. But you asked the question, do I think it's similar? And my answer is no, I don't think that. Make a soup out of it. Yeah, like that misfoxication. Think while that's still legal. Again, from my anarchist days, there are various sayings like, if voting could change anything, they'd make it illegal. And it is very easy to get into that frame of mind. That's just a bit too nihilistic, even for me. And some would say, that's saying something. If all angry thinks it's too nihilistic, it must be fairly nihilistic. Yes, I'm arguably naive enough to believe that we should maintain some positive hope for the world, some positive hope for change. If you're just going to be completely defeatist and say you can never change anything, then, well, I don't see the point of anything in that case. So some people would call me naive or delusional, but I don't completely write off democratic voting systems. I won't hesitate to point out the flaws in Western democracies, but I also won't write them off completely. Even if they all seem to be descending into farce, if not outright chaos at the moment. Excellent. Well, 2 thumbs up to you, Miss Foxification, for going to see your local senator and trying to talk some sense into them. Uh, it's always possible, and I hope that works out. Why is it no? But there are very few people who think the turnover of Australian prime ministers is a good idea. In fact, I was really amazed the Libs did it when all their internal polling told them they were going to make their own voter base really fucking angry if they did it, and they went and did it. And hey, everyone got really angry. There you go. Smiley did. The Smashy Smashy has its place as far as I'm concerned. Some people talking nice to them doesn't count. I mean, like this ridiculous horse shit people say about, oh, you shouldn't punch Nazis. You should debate them in the marketplace of ideas. And to the extent I have actually seen fuckwits on the internet argue that the only reason the Nazis rose to power is that people didn't debate them effectively, and there wouldn't have been the mass extermination of Jews if only the Jews had presented arguments explaining to people why you shouldn't have exterminated them. Ms. Foxification, I think that is broadly an accurate statement to make. The Occupy movement accomplished nothing in the long run. Made people feel good about themselves, but I also don't believe in giving up just because the revolution doesn't come today. That doesn't mean we should give up looking for change. Video games, I made your Dalek talk by saying exterminate. Yeah, as again, Bury, nothing to debate with Nazis. Like this fuckhead Steve Bannon, who got put on ABC TV in Australia and was going to be a major guest at the New Yorker festival in New York, and it's like the arguments in favor of giving him the platform is so fucking puerile. It's like, oh well, you shouldn't be scared of what he says. You should debate him. It's like, you can debate the white supremacist ideology without giving the pieces of shit a platform that we know for a fact. We see the patterns. Giving someone like Bannon a major platform validates him in the eyes of his supporters and validates his message, and it moves the direction of what's, you know, acceptable discourse, as in further to the extremes. Like, these people are trying to say it's reasonable to say I should be able to deport and or exterminate every race I don't like, and it's like, what is to debate in that fucking statement? And you don't have to give them platform. And we also have the evidence that when you starve these pieces of shit of a platform, it weakens their fucking message, and they can't recruit kids to their cause. For fuck's sake, it's absolutely ridiculous. Oh, Tara, your computer didn't update. Well, that's happened to me in a live stream before. Oh, English Tazchick saying hi. Hi. Yes, back in the day, we used to have a lot of back and forth, me and Megalich and his good lady wife who had the username Tazchick. Yeesh. Oh, you're having updates too, Miss Voxification. Goddamn. Yeah, I hate it. Like, I had Windows did one once right in the middle of a live stream, and it fucking took my laptop offline for half an hour. So that was the end of that live stream. Oh yeah, Charlie, that was hilarious. Milo bitching that no one likes him, or deplatforming of Milo worked beautifully. You had that big bitch fest on uh, um, uh, Facebook. I was going to turn it into an opera, like, you know, just do big opera baritone voice and use some very moody lighting. It'd be like Milo the opera about nobody cares that I spent all my money. And you're right, dude. Nobody cares. I like that musical area about it. Your grandfather debated the Nazis in 1944 in England, Libya, Egypt, Italy. Yes. Yes, Catherine, you're right. These people who are arguing that, oh, this is a question of free speech, when they're glossing over the fact that the speech of these people is implicit violence. You validating people saying that they should inflict violent retribution on people, cultures, races, religions that they disagree with. It's like, it's this position of extreme comfort of these well-to-dos saying like, "Hey, we need to debate the idea." It's like, yeah, you're probably not suffering any direct harm in your day-to-day life from these people being mainstreamed and giving a platform, where there are a bunch of people whose lives are being completely fucked up by these idiots in the fucking media and government validating these viewpoints, virtually mainstreaming these viewpoints, and that other people are in fear of their fucking lives. Oh yeah, Tara. Of course, Mark Latham still loves one. But actually, isn't Milo coming back? I saw a thing that there's again one of these fuckheads was proposing another Milo tour, and that cockhead from Queensland was going to join in, and it might have included Lauren Southern again. I'm not sure, or someone. Oh no, it wasn't Lauren Southern. It was another absolutely awful American female right winger. Um, but uh, yeah, I don't know if that was ever confirmed. But I, for one, was um, surprised that someone was proposing another tour for Milo, because that seemed like a fucking money loser to me. But oh no, musical aviator. It wasn't Tommy Lauren. Ann Coulter. That's who it was. Oh yeah, Miss Foxification. Yes, Roosh V failed the character test because of his repeated endorsements of rape, I believe, was his main downfall. Yeah, Tara, I saw things suggesting Milo was coming back with Ann Coulter, and that cockhead from Queensland was going to be part of it. It's like, I know. Oh, there's a big question, Toby. What do I want to happen with my corpse when I die? Maybe some significant public shrine. Maybe cremate me and pour the remains into Parliament House air vents while question time's happening, so all the pollies can fucking choke on me. Oh, Charlie Witchcockhead from Queensland, you're right. I wasn't narrowing it down very much. The guy who made his maiden speech praising the white Australia policy and calling for a final solution. He's in Bob Katter's party now. He was in Pauline Hanson's party. Yes. As a Fury, after watching campaign 2 of Critical Role, make my corpse into tea. I think that was a traditional Celtic thing. The Celtic kings were somehow consumed by their people. They may have been eaten, they may have been made into tea, they may have been smoked, as in they were cremated and the remains were put in a pipe and smoked. Toby, you want animals left out, your body left for animals to eat. There are how many different forms of disposal of corpses? If you're left in the open air, that's called burial by air, because cultures that practiced and promoted that were some mountainous countries where digging graves was impractical, and even cremation was impractical because there weren't many trees. They would take you up onto a mountainside and chop you up, and the birds of prey, the raptors, would come and take the pieces. That's called burial by air. And of course, there's burial in earth, there's disposal by fire, cremation, there's burial at sea, and there's preservation, as you know, like mummification and things like that. I think that's all the types of dealing with bodies, like mummification, preservation, just burial in the ground, cremation, burial at sea, burial by air. I know there was a traditional thing. I don't know if it was with all Aborigines or just with some tribes, where, and I don't know if they did it for everyone or special people. They would wrap the body in bark, put it up. They wouldn't bury it. They'd put it up in the branches of a tree. Yes, misfoxification, donation to science. But eventually, if you donate your body to science, eventually it's disposed of. Either, and it falls into one of those things, it will either be preserved, as in they'll preserve you in formaldehyde or something, or it is eventually buried, but more often when your body's been donated to science, they cremate it at some point, because they do all sorts of things with all the bits of you, and eventually there's a cremation. I don't know. I think I'd count mausoleum as burial, entombment. You're true. You're not. In some cases, mausoleums, they don't bury you beneath the ground. You're above the ground. That's entombment. Yeah, video games. I think this is a fun topic for conversation. What to do with your remains after your death. I'm not sure. Yeah. And you're right, misclassification. Something like the Paris catacombs is a type of burial. And I have to admit, I'm getting a lot of these thoughts. One of my all-time favorite comics is Neil Gaiman's The Sandman, a very influential comic series from the 90s. And there's one of the stories, there's all these characters who get lost in a storm, and they all end up in this tavern at the world's end. And it's basically in the storm, all these people have crossed dimensions and ended up in the same place. And they live in different realities, basically. And there's one group, they're professional disposers of the dead. They have a name, trying to think what it is, but they're specialists in disposing of the dead. And that's when they talk about methods of disposal of the corpse, and its burial, preservation, burial at sea, burial by air, or cremation. Tara, you're getting your puppy cremated. Oh, yes, Tara, body farms. Sometimes when your body is donated to science, it can be used to investigate body decomposition. For the purpose of crimes, they see how long it takes bodies to decompose in different states, like in the open air or underwater or whatnot. And that information is used to help law enforcement investigate murders, like tell how long a body has been dead. And that's right, Charlie. James Doohan had his ashes launched into space. He's not the only one either. But yes, but then again, the method of disposal for him was cremation. The ashes were then fired into space. But yeah. Video games. Yes, the writer Neil Gaiman probably rose to fame for his long-running comic series, The Sandman, in the 90s. One of the greatest comics ever, and explores all these really quite complex ideas of myth, the nature of reality, and what it means to be a conscious being. The Sandman is the king of dreams. He has lots of names, but Dream is one of them. His family are known as the Endless. They're not gods. They exist beyond the concept of gods. They're anthropomorphic personifications of states of being. And in English, all their names start with D. The oldest is Destiny, because the first thing that existed had a destiny. So Destiny is the oldest. Second oldest is Death, who in the comics is like a goth chick. And she's the second oldest because the first thing that was alive was destined to die. And then comes Dream, because consciousness came. And as soon as something's conscious, it's capable of dreaming. And then who's the Destruction, because destruction is also a part of the natural order. And then there's the twins, Despair and Desire. And the youngest is Delirium. In the younger days of the universe, she was Delight. But then things spiraled out a bit and she became Delirium. So yes, it's a fun read. Forget how many issues it ran for. I think it was 75 issues. And yes, so it ran for 75 monthly issues, and there have been a succession of specials as well. So there's more than just the original 75 to read, but the 75 are a sequential story. It's very good. That's an interesting conundrum, is foxification. Issue with matter not decaying around Chernobyl due to radiation killing the microorganisms. I hear so many different stories about Chernobyl, and some of them contradict the other stories. So never really sure what's true. Because yes, it's certainly an unusual thing. I think it is still the worst nuclear disaster humans have had. Oh wow! You're saying that 27 years of leaf matter and such, and yeah, there's recently a fire. I could see, yeah, I could see that if the actual what we regard as fuel for fires, vegetation, isn't decaying, that would be bad. Bye, Toby. We don't tell Celtic King we love him too if he was here. Yeah. Let him know we're thinking of him. Hope that the court case doesn't go too bad for him. There's someone on my screen. Yeah. Isn't that weird? That's a weird, unexpected side effect of the Chernobyl radiation. If it results decades later in a massive, unprecedented fire risk, that you could have a really out of control wildfire there. Biori, I did see that movie Evolution when it first came up. It was on TV the other day, and I watched about 15 minutes of it. I don't really remember how it went. The bit I saw the other day was near the start, where they were just realizing they had this thing that was evolving really quickly. I don't really remember how it went. I know it all sort of went out of control, but I don't remember specifically what happened in it. Oh, that's interesting. Sorry, Miss Foxification, you're saying areas with no radiation, 70 to 90% of the leaves have gone after a year, but where there was more radiation, the leaves maintain 60% of the weight. And when there's a fire, it sends contaminated waste skywards. Of course, it's not just, I was thinking about smoke pollution, but it's not just smoke, it's radioactively contaminated waste that would be going up and out. Wow, that's like terrible. Okay. Video games, watching the new SNES drunk video. Look, I'm not drinking, as I said at the start. One of the side effects of me having a bit of a wild time at VidCon on the weekend is my total lack of desire to drink alcohol this week. Yeah, it's like, so it's definitely not the most I've ever drunk. It's like went out with some YouTubers on Thursday night, got a little bit drunk, had no, I got to sleep in a bit on Friday, and on Friday night went out with YouTubers, got probably a little bit more drunk, and then I had to get up on early on Saturday to go to VidCon, and then went out with YouTubers on Saturday night. Didn't get that drunk because I was feeling it, so I didn't get that drunk on Saturday night. Then I had to get up early on Sunday, which was a major fucking effort. Dragged myself in, and then went out and got more drunk on Sunday night. The most drunk I'd been in a little while. I don't know, maybe even a couple of years. Certainly not nowhere near the most drunk I've ever been. And I didn't get sick. I didn't throw up or anything. But oh my god! And I wasn't hungover as such on Monday, but my throat was really raspy, probably from shouting at this German Oompa band to play Bohemian Rhapsody, which they did, and then I was very loudly singing along with that. And So I had on Monday morning, I was really tired, had hardly any voice, and just didn't want to do much. and I've been getting progressively better since then. But my energy level's not behind. I think I mild cold. I don't know if just the sore throat and the chest thing was just about being around those crowds and shouting to be heard and stuff. And yeah, but I'd be surprised that I really have no interest at all in drinking alcohol at the moment. Oh, there's Biori, the cast. I do remember the cast in Evolution. Orlando Jones had all the funniest lines from memory. He's a professor and he's also a women's volleyball coach. And there's basically a lot of jokes about him being quite the perv, if I remember. Yeah, from my memory, he had all the funny lines. He's a very funny guy. Oh, I see. With megaleech and misfox creation, I'm talking about black fungus. There's a black fungus that's adapted to feed off radiation. And it's in Chernobyl and around the Fukushima nuclear disaster, which is probably our second worst nuclear disaster. That's a cheery thought, isn't it? These things that eat and accumulate toxic radiation. And that's just going to get into the ecosystems. That's a nice quote without context, Bury. There's always time for lubrication. That feels like it should be on a T-shirt, really. You know, it's just in all caps. There's always time for lubrication. That's a message for all of us, I think, to carry through life. It's applicable to so many situations, and even in the metaphorical sense, I think it encourages us to stop and think in all situations. If there's always time for lubrication, maybe there's always time to think in a given situation. Miss Foxification, they found the core in Fukushima. Man, there's so many dodgy stories about Fukushima, and it felt very much like the Japanese government were lying to us to cover up how serious the situation was. But yeah, that's why when we start talking about alternative energy sources, like getting away from burning fossil fuels, you do get the lobbyists who say nuclear is the answer. I'm going, look, okay, so nuclear doesn't cause the same sort of pollution as burning fossil fuels, but I'm not going to support nuclear when the mining process for nuclear fuel is incredibly destructive and toxic, and we still don't have safe methods for disposing of nuclear waste. And yes, there is the ever-present fear of disaster at nuclear power plant. Oh, it's not going to happen often, man. It only has to happen once for it to have been a very bad gamble. But the threat of a nuclear disaster like Chernobyl or the Fukushima one, okay. That's my third reason, but it's not the top two. The top two are the mining process for nuclear fuel is incredibly destructive and toxic, and it's incredibly short-sighted. I think we can keep doing that and not do severe damage to the ecosystem. And the second one is we still don't have a safe method of storage or disposal of nuclear waste. And yeah, then third or fourth is the security things that, you know, a disaster at a nuclear plant is a pretty fucking big deal. And there's a security issue around nuclear waste being used by terrorists. So yes. Like February, we make movies with messages for granted. You maniacs, you blew it up. Meanwhile, the audience go, "Oh, it's got talking monkeys." So yeah, I think the thing of, oh yes, the wave of the future is nuclear is bullshit. I think that the investment should go in the development of more effective and cheaper solar, wind, thermal, and tidal energy. Those are just four that spring to mind that we have working technology for now, and investment in those is a significant plus for the future. What was it? Misfoxification plants were required to contribute to a fund for decontamination. Yes, but then the economy performed badly, so the funds don't cover costs. And that's the thing. When you this bullshit that, you know, it's not just Australian politicians, but of course I hear Australian politicians say it all the time. It's like, oh, but coal's so cheap. It's like the only reason coal is, well, there's two reasons coal is cheap. Because the development of the industry was subsidized billions of dollars. And second, they're not responsible for cleaning up their messes. They're not charged for the cost of cleaning up messes they make. So there's this massive hidden cost. It's complete fucking bullshit. Video games. I also want the world to avoid a Doctor Strangelove-like fate. I mean, God, how old is Doctor Strangelove now? It's like 50 years old, and the satire is just as biting now. Sure, it's like 50 years old. Doctor Strangelove, how I learned to stop worrying and love the bomb. 64. My God. So that's more than, I haven't watched it in a little while, but it's over 50 years old. And I think the satire is still as biting today as it was then. I mean, God, that film's got legs. That film has got legs. Well, that's interesting, misfoxification. You reckon nuclear and decel goes hand in hand? Well, also, desalination is very short-sighted as well. Like, we ended up with that big decel plant built in Melbourne that ended up not being needed. But the danger, of course, okay, we've got all this ocean water, and you can take it in and run it through a process to desalinate, but then you end up with the concentrated saline at the end, which goes back into the environment, and is really damaging. But yeah, no, I firmly believe suggesting nuclear is the future is bullshit. It's yeah, like I said, like my two big ones is the mining process for nuclear fuel is far too destructive, and the second one is we don't have a safe method of disposing of waste. And then there's the subsidiary ones, the fear of a disaster and the terrorism threat as well. Nuclear is bullshit. And yes, we have so much room for solar. It makes no sense for us not to be doing solar. And thermal, and particularly now we've got better battery options. That gives us much more scope for renewables like solar, wind, thermal, tidal, because we obviously need a method of storing that power as well.
And that's what Australia should be doing. Like it's true. You've heard rumors about fat Aussie bastard coming back to YouTube. Dude, I don't think anyone would even notice, quite honestly. That strikes me as being somewhat of a non-event, because there are way more full-on extreme right-wingers than him, very active on YouTube at the moment. I mean, he could try and amp up his usual racism and bullshit, I guess, and they'd maybe love that. Dr. Popperbong, hello. I haven't seen you for a little while. Oh yeah, this Fox Fiction. I have read a little bit about the fast breeder reactors. It's just that it just seems like unnecessarily high risk when there are options that are much lower risk. To me, the idea of spending money investing in nuclear is fucking ridiculous. There are much better options. Yes, Tara, I've heard that too. Some countries saying if we want to sell them uranium, we should be responsible for taking the waste back as well. I actually think that's bullshit. The country that produces the waste, as in uses the uranium for fuel and ends up with waste, they should be responsible for it. But someone should be responsible, yeah. And that is an interesting point, Ms. Foxification. Russia taking people's wastes and using it for power because you can, and you have no high activity waste left, and it could last for generations. Look, the thing is, like I said, I'll just come back to virtually everywhere in the world to become large-scale nuclear power generators would require massive investment, and I just think that's a really shitty investment. I think the investment should go to lower risk energy sources. Okay, video games giving us a random Dr. Strangelove quote. You've obviously never heard of cobalt thorium G. There's a radioactive half-life of 93 years. I just probably my favorite thing was like the American president saying, "Gentlemen, you can't fight in the war room." So I mean, like Kubrick plays the American president, Dr. Strangelove, the German scientist, very heavily based on Werner von Braun, but von Braun was not the only German scientist that America took after World War II. He's also a British officer, and I think that's it. I think he plays those three roles. Dr. Popperbong, look, contemplating the word fuck is a fine way to spend your time. It is a very flexible word. It is a great word. And variants of it have been used for a very long time, possibly as long as 1,000 years. You know, the records are a bit sketchy. Yeah, Ms. Foxification, you're right with solar. It has the potential to have a negative effect in some farming areas, but yeah, we can just put it in our desert. It's we need to refine the methods of transporting the energy, because like you use the plants to generate electricity and it goes out along the lines. The efficiency of the power transfer gets less and less as time goes on. Video games. You thought I was a fan of Fat Aussie Bastard. I have physically been in the same place as him. Used to do meetups, and as time went on, he got worse and worse. He is a hideous racist pile of shite, and he particularly fell from favour when he stole money from cancer kitties. I think he's convicted of fraud for promising to make a donation to charity but not making a donation to charity from money people had sent him. So yeah, it's surprising that stealing money from cancer kitties can make you unpopular. You know, it's a wild and crazy proposition, but yeah. Fuck is one of those favourite words in the primary school you live next to, and that's just from the teacher's lounge, let alone the playground. It's a very expressive word, and shouted very loud can be very therapeutic. You know what? We've been doing so many searches tonight. I think, how old is the word fuck? See what search comes back with. Okay, very quickly, and not necessarily accurate. Wikipedia thinks it can be first attested around 1475. There's another article where a historian thinks he's found the use of the word fuck in 1310. Yeah, I mean, Shakespeare references it. Shakespeare's full of filthy jokes. But yeah, probably my favorite dirty Shakespeare joke is when these characters are swooning over a female character and how perfect and wonderful she is and how horny she makes them, and they got a letter. Someone actually fakes a letter from her, but the guy who gets the letter falls for it and goes, "It's definitely from my ladies. My lady, this is most definitely her C, her U, and her T." And in case you missed it, someone who overhears it repeats it back and goes, "Her C, her U, and her T." And it's pretty obvious what he's saying he likes about her in that. Oh, so purely the double, but that's not rude everywhere. Like, that is incredibly rude. That's really rude in some places. Like, yeah, good job. That'll start you a fight in some places doing that. But yeah, it's weird how physical expressions aren't the same everywhere. Like, but I think not everyone knows this is really rude, and not everyone knows this is regarded as rude in English-speaking countries. Well, this is positive in the West, but in some countries, this is the most aggressive thing you could do. Like a stripper, did you ever talk to him? I hung out with him several times at YouTube gatherings. There's pictures, videos of us palling around. But as time goes by, he just became more and more overtly racist. Then there was this whole thing with the fraud on the Cancer Kitties charity. So, yeah. I mean, that's what sunk him with a lot of people. My biggest problem was what hideous fucking racist he is. You got in trouble for repeating things without understanding it. You called a girl in your class a bitch. You just thought it meant mean girl. Well, it kind of does. It's a pretty mild thing. Like, stripper, do I ever like him? Yeah, like before he degenerated. Like I said, we hung out. I went out drinking with him. There's photos and videos of us together having a wild old time. It's just he degenerated into this fucking racism and which was always my main problem with him. But yeah. Dr. Popper Bong, that is an urban legend. That is not, in fact, for those who don't know, there's a story that goes, this V thing is English archers when they were being occupied by the Normans, the French, to stop the favoured weapon of the commoner in England was the longbow. And for people who were suspected of being anti-French, they would cut these two fingers off so they couldn't draw the longbow. So the indication to the French soldiers that they were in trouble because these guys hadn't had their fingers cut off was to do that. That was basically a threat. I'm going to shoot you with an arrow. That's apocryphal. That was made up sometime in the 20th century. So, yeah. Sorry, it's foxification. You seem to remember this, meaning someone's butthole is this big. Well, the weird thing is there's this thing with those alt-right shenanigans of them saying, oh, let's do this thing where we say, this is our white supremacy signal, and we'll do it in a bunch of photos. And it became this weird thing where they said it was a joke, and we're gonna own the left. We'll make them say that this is a white supremacy symbol, and it isn't. It's a joke we're making. It did this full circle thing where it was like a 4chan prank to circulate the idea that doing this was a white supremacist symbol, but the only people doing it were white supremacists and racists. So it actually became a thing when they were posing like this, or doing a thing down on leg or something. It was like their signal to people like, yeah, I'm one of you. So they argued that it was a joke, but it became a self-fulfilling thing, that it was a signal that these white supremacists and racists did to each other. Video games, off to edit videos. Good luck to you. I'm maintaining my stamina better than I thought I might. So I'll probably be here for about another 20 minutes. Fury, all the horrible shit you learned in school from other boys about swearing, rude gestures, slapping on the bum. Okay, and someone whipped you into line so you're not a bully as an adult thing. Is that like a stripper? You reckon Fab is a scary dude? No, I'm not scared of talking about. You think he has a huge collection of guns? Is that something you've seen, or is that something he said or you've heard as a rumor? I've literally never considered him scary. Not when I was friendly with him. Not when I don't want to be friendly with him. I'm not scared about someone having a big collection of guns. What's he going to do? Threaten me with him? That'll get you straight to jail, particularly someone with a criminal history, which he has. He's not about to threaten me or anyone else with a gun, I would say, because that's not how he is. But if he ever was stupid enough to do that, he would almost certainly go to jail as a result. But I've just never seen that in his personality, of that being a thing he would do. Like I said, my problem with him is he's a horrible fucking racist. I've never seen him as someone who particularly threatens violence on people. So that's not a concern I have with him. But no, I'm certainly not scared about talking about it, because all I'm saying is I think he's one of those people who asserts he's not racist, even as he posts incredibly racist stuff. It's just like, well, dude, you pretty much you provided the evidence yourself. So it isn't something that concerns me particularly. It's yeah, it just kind of is what it is. Just that thing you said, misfoxification, about someone saying that's an insult, saying how big your butthole is from too much of the activity. That was the there's a joke I heard ages ago about teachers giving anti-drug talks to kids, and one teacher having a really good success rate, and one teacher feeling like he's not getting through to the kids at all. They're not worried about drugs at all. How does he do it? Because there was a classic thing from the 90s about getting an egg and then scrambling it, like the egg saying, "This is your brain," and then smashing it into a fry pan and scrambling eggs, and "This is your brain on drugs." And the teacher with the ineffective class said the brain on drugs thing doesn't work. And my teacher goes, "Oh, I abandoned that years ago." My thing is, this is your butthole. This is your butthole in prison. Don't do drugs, you'll end up in prison. Locust Trooper. Okay, look, dudes, people's sexuality that doesn't cross over into criminal stuff is not something that me. But I will also throw in that I have paid no attention whatsoever to the dude for years. So I have zero knowledge of any public statements he's made. But yes, someone's sexuality is not something that I tend to judge them on. And yeah, so long as it's not criminal, so long as it's consensual, and someone goes, "Oh, you say pedophilia is consensual?" Yeah, well, no, because legally and morally, children can't give consent. Consent means adults who are capable of giving consent. So yes, but man, that gets weird. Possibly the weirdest statement, and I think this was an Alex Jones statement. And then there's a dude who says weird stuff. I think it was him that said it. I'm going to try and find the quote. Oh, it's all been changed by this reference to that lady who said the thing about changing nappies on a baby. But the quote I was looking for, it was along the lines of, "Oh, the left, they're all perverts. They say if there's consent, anything's okay." And I was like, yes, that is the nature of consent. If two adults consent to do something, then it's okay. Charlie, you might be right. You might be right. It might have been Rush Limbaugh. Let me. I think you're right. I think it was Rush Limbaugh, actually. Here, it was one of these blowhards. Limbaugh. Yes, here it is. And this is the weirdest motherfucking thing. I mean, like, this guy is just making himself sound like a rapist. Because here's the phrase. He's going, "Oh, if there's consent on both, or all three, or all four, or however many involved, it's perfectly fine. Whatever it is. But if the left ever senses and smells there's no consent in part of the equation, here come the rape police. Consent's the magic key to it." That's such a deranged thing to do. He's basically saying if there's a sexual activity that he doesn't approve of, then it doesn't matter if people consent to it. It's bad. But he's basically, I don't even have to paraphrase it. He says if the left ever senses and smells there's no consent in part of the equation, here come the rape police. Like, yeah, no, they're called the police and they should show up if there's no consent. that is one of the strangest things I've ever heard one of these right-wing blowhards say. So, sorry, and hi, Logan Paula. So, this is the thing. That is definitely one of the strangest things I've ever heard one of these right-wing blowhards say. And even the first half of it would be weird enough. He's got like, oh, the people on the left think if you've got any sort of crazy way out sexual preference, it's okay so long as everyone consents. To which you're going, oh, yes, activity between consenting adults is, yeah. But then he throws in like, oh, but if there's no consent, they get upset. He comes directly, yes, if there's no consent, the police should be involved. It's like, what the hell? It's really bizarre. Logan Paula, did I see Joe Rogan defend who? I'm not sure who we're talking about. Focus Tripper, where would I retire? Well, yeah, I mean, I'm unimaginative. Probably somewhere with a nice beach. If I was just full on retiring, wasn't worried about money stuff, somewhere with a nice beach. You know, maybe somewhere in the South Pacific. Just somewhere I could kick back, you know, with a nice drink, nice beach. I did not see that. Oh my God, is Joe Rogan one of those people who does that stupid shit that says a woman can't rape a man? That's fucked up. I hate people who say that. It's such bullshit. Stigmatizing men who are forced into sexual activity. That's bullshit. Like, not so much Thailand. My island paradise, it'd be more likely to be the Philippines than Thailand, or you know, maybe go way out and you know, what are those really expensive places? The Seychelles, one of those really. Oh yeah, Charlie, Fiji could be nice. Eve Nuva, hello. You're here for like the last 10 minutes. Logan Paul, his excuse was he was 17. What? Is he saying 17 is an okay age? It's like, no, it just sounds like Joe Rogan was being a dick, which is hardly an uncommon thing for Joe Rogan to do. I guess Dr. Popabong, Mauritius is one of those exotic places. That might be okay. And did I see about a Tinder trap? No, I don't know what that is. Actually, Locust Tripper, New Zealand. New Zealand is a good place to hide out the collapse of society. Eve, you notice, you were just watching my videos now, so I was like, yes, usually on Tuesdays and Thursdays between 8 and 10 p.m. Australian time, Australian Eastern time. Yeah, I did a holiday to New Zealand a few years ago, and the first vibe I got from it is, yeah, this is where you go to escape the collapse of society, whether it's, you know, post-nuclear apocalypse, zombie apocalypse, whatever. Like lots of fresh water, lots of dumb ground-dwelling animals for food and fur. Yes. Yeah, Bury, if you want intellectual thinking, you're not going to listen to a guy who was host of Fear Factor. Oh yeah, Logan Paul. People who say it's not as bad as it happens to a guy, or that it's not possible to rape a guy, that is some fucking bullshit. That is sick and wrong and totally demeaning to male victims of sexual violence. I really don't like people who say that. It's some serious bullshit. 8 a.m. East Coast USA, Eve Nova. Okay. I'm your early morning wake up call. Yes, Safa. Nauru is not a holiday place. Definitely not Nauru. And I wouldn't go to PNG either, not for a holiday or to retire. Yeah, Logan Paula, people say that sort of shit. That's just, they're not good people. I don't care where they say their politics lies. if someone's going to understate the impact sexual violence or rape can have on men, I am not a fan of theirs. I think it's a really shitty attitude. Yeah, it's bullshit. Yeah, Bureau, as I say, whether it's there are all sorts of terrible things, and yeah, just the idea of saying, "Oh, it doesn't happen to men," or some people will say it can't happen to men, or it's not a big deal, or men want it. It's just like, no, fuck you. That is bullshit. That is seriously dangerous bullshit. Ooh, misfoxification. You're a log cabin in the mountains person, but then you live in the tropics. I tell you what I've done, because I did mention the Philippines, as my ex was from the Philippines, and I did visit her family there. Like she grew up in Australia, and of course the Philippines has some absolutely beautiful white sand beaches. I mean, Philippines is hundreds of islands, but there's really famous ones like Boracay. But I did go up into the mountains in the Philippines, because the Philippines is a volcanic area, of course. And when you go up into the mountains in the Philippines, you get above the humidity and the air's really clean, and it is quite beautiful. So I guess if I retired to the Philippines, I could move between the beaches and the mountains. Maybe the beaches in winter, and before it gets too hot, and in the really dense heat and humidity for half the year, I guess retreat to the mountains. I'm trying to remember the name of the place I went to in the mountains, but it was very. I heard that Locust Trooper that they at least temporarily closed Boracay because they did have a problem with pollution. I think it was meant to be temporary. Just looking up, is it still closed? Yeah, it is currently closed. Yes. Okay. That was a decision made earlier this year because they had too big a problem with pollution, which is completely understandable. But again, the Philippines is hundreds of islands. They could always find somewhere. Catherine, I absolutely agree. The way you can usually tell if something is wrong is if you change the roles. And someone's saying like, "Oh, if a man does this to a woman, or if a woman does this to a man, it's not that bad." I go, no, if you just swap the gender roles and go, would it be bad if a man did this to a woman? And if it was bad if a man does it to a woman, it's bad if a woman does it to a man. And that's often when people say like, oh, it's not racist, because you're talking about a group that they don't like. And you'd say, well, we'll just change the names to a different group and see how bad it sounds. I like to strip out. Yes, President Duterte is a nutcase. Well, don't know if he's a nutcase. I think he's completely sane. He's just very, very, very dangerous and has promoted murder. And he's just basically a bad person. And clearly fancies himself as being a bit of a dictator. He's bad news, Dirt. Exactly. It's just a crime. Rape is just a crime. It shouldn't be about your politics. It shouldn't be about what. Oh yeah, I did see that, Tara. Same-sex activity got decriminalized by vote in India, which is nice. That's like a very big chunk of the world's population can no longer be prosecuted for being gay. So that's positive. Speaking about positive, it's bedtime. I'm regarding as bed as positive because I'm tired. Finished my cola. My God, I think, yeah, I normally have at least one or two drinks of alcohol on these live streams, but just yet zero desire to drink alcohol at the moment. Locust Trooper, is Scott Morrison a murderer for murdering Turnbull? I don't know. Turnbull half killed himself, really. But anyway, good night, everyone. It's been fun as usual. I hope you all look after yourselves, and hope to see you again soon. Make a video or two of it again. Oh, thanks, Miss Foxcation. Yes, if you'll remember to do a thumbs up on your way out, that's good. Catherine, you stayed awake for the whole live stream. Go you. Yeah, and I'm a little bit surprised I made it tonight, because I have not had much energy the last couple of days, but I survived it. Thank you all for hanging out. Hope to see you all again soon. Look after yourselves, and I'll say bye now.